Before we begin, the story of the fox and the pixies. Folklorists often point to a recurring pattern I'll call the three houses. Archetype. A hostile force tests three shelters of increasing strength, the first to fail. The third prevails, often followed by a final trick that defeats the aggressor. In tale catalogues, this sits near the International Folk Tale, Index 1 to 4, and Neighbours of the Three Little Pigs and the Wolf and the Seven Kids. What follows is a retelling of the earliest printed version of The Fox and the Pixies from 1853. There was once a fox who, prowling by night in search of prey, came unexpectedly upon a colony of pixies. Each pixie had a separate house. The first he came to was a wooden house. Let me in, said the fox. I won't, was the pixie's answer, and the door is fastened. Upon this the fox climbed to the top of the house, and, having poured it down, made a meal of the unfortunate pixie. The next was a stone house. Let me in, said the fox. The door is fastened, answered the pixie. Again was the house pulled down, and its inmate eaten. The third was an iron house. The fox again craved admittance, and was again refused. But I bring you good news, said the fox. No, no, replied the pixie. I know what you want. You shall not come in here tonight. That house the fox in vain attempted to destroy. It was too strong for him, and he went away in despair. But he returned the next night, and exerted all his fox-like qualities in the hope of deceiving the pixie. For some time he tried in vain, until at last he mentioned a tempting field of turnips in the neighborhood, to which he offered to conduct his intended victim. They agreed to meet the next morning at 4 o'clock, but the pixie outwitted the fox, for he found his way to the field and returned laden with his turnips long before the fox was astir. The fox was greatly vexed, and was long unable to devise another scheme, until he bethought himself of a great fair about to be held a short way off, and proposed to the pixie that they should set off for it at 3 in the morning. The pixie agreed, but the fox was again outwitted, for he was only up in time to meet the pixie returning home with his fairings: a clock, a crock, and a frying pan. The pixie, who saw the fox coming, got into the crock and rolled himself down the hill, and the fox, unable to find him, abandoned the scent and went his way. The fox returned the next morning, and, finding the door open, went in when he caught the pixie in bed, put him into a box, and locked him in. But the pixie, being a cunning little fellow, said to him, Let me out, and I will tell you a wonderful secret. The fox let him out, when, quick as thought, he charmed the fox into the box in his place, and shut the lid upon him. And that was the end of the fox. Placed in its British setting, the tale's choices feel inevitable. Pixies are Dartmoor's neighbour spirits, mischievous, territorial, and quick to punish or reward. Giving them tiny houses makes them domestically legible and sets the stage for a three-house sequence that is supernatural without being grandiose. The iron house matters twice over. It's not only stronger than wood or stone. In British and Irish folk belief, iron is apotropaic, a material that wards off malevolent forces. Hearth, tongs, knives, pins, and horseshoes are thresholds do protective work in countless traditions. The iron house is, in effect, a dwelling built like a giant charm. Why a fox and not a wolf? Because by the 19th century, wolves had long vanished from England, while the fox was a familiar raider and trickster, a talkative thief of hen roosts, and a perfect foil for a wily pixie. This predator substitution becomes important later, when the story is standardized for print. As 19th century collectors gathered nursery lore, the cast elsewhere in Britain drifted from spirits to farm animals, and the villain tilted back toward the continental wolf. James Orchard Hallowell Phillips prints a pigs and wolf version in the 1880s. Joseph Jacobs fixes the now canonical Three Little Pigs in 1890, complete with straw stick brick and the chimney gambit. The Dartmoor folklore storytelling shares a spine with continental cousins. Those cousins, in turn, helped harden the English standard. In Italy, the Three Goslings. Thomas Frederick Crane records a Goslings and Wolf tale in 1885. The progressive building and breath, blow motif are there, but the cast is avian. Still, the combination of ordinary materials and a wolf reinforces what English printers would soon prefer. And in Germany, the wolf and the 7 young kids. This one lacks a 3-build sequence, but it supplies the wolf at Thor deception and the house as last defense. Motifs that harmonize perfectly with pigtails and help explain why the wolf supplants the fox in English print. By Jacobs's 1890 version, the braid is tight. Animal protagonists, wolf antagonist, practical materials, straw, sticks, brick, and a theatrical finale in the chimney and boiling pot. The Pixies' crock rolling resurfaces as the third pig rolling downhill in a churn. A comic image readers and listeners never forget. The Three Houses logic travels well. 2 non-European examples bring out cunning versus appetite in ways that echo Dartmoor's finish. In India, the lambikin and the rolling drum. In Joseph Jacobs's Indian Fairy Tales, 1892, the lambikin is a small, tasty hero stalked by predators. He survives not by building a fortress, but by hiding in a drumikin, a little drum rolling along past danger while singing a nonsense song. Eventually his voice gives him away, and he's gobbled up in some versions, but the memorable image, the rolling vessel escape, strongly parallels the churn, crock business in English pig stories, and the Dartmoor pixie. Jacobs himself notes the connection in his story notes, tracing earlier publication to Steele and Temple's Wide Awake Stories, 1884. In other words, even where houses drop out, the third time cunning and rolling object trick persist across cultures. And in East Africa, hare the trickster, hyena the glutton. Across Swahili oral literature and more broadly in East and West Africa, the hare is a classic trickster and the hyena a ravenous simpleton. In Steer's 19th century Swahili tales, hare versus hyena episodes show the same 3-beat testing and final reversal we relish in the Dartmoor story. The smaller mind outwits the larger appetite. While a strict 3 houses build is uncommon here, the iterative trials and coup de grace by wits align almost point for point with the fox and pixie duel. Think of the Pixies' carefully timed arrivals, the crock roll, and the box reversal at the end. When we return to Dartmoor after this tour, 3 preserved features stand out. Features the later pigs and wolf standard tends to flatten. Wit beats appetite and beats labor alone. Much is made in later English tellings of hard work, bricks, defeating laziness, straw. In Dartmoor, material strength matters, but the end game belongs to intelligence. The Pixies' earlier arrivals at the turnip field and fair, the crock roll, the box reversal. Engineering helps, ingenuity wins. Matter and magic cooperate. The iron house is both physically tougher and symbolically charged, iron as a protective metal in British and Irish law. The story lets craft and charm work together, a typical folk sensibility that later brick-only morals can't quite hold. Local predator, local tone. A fox makes the atmosphere intimate and sly, a neighborly menace who talks, bargains, and bumbles a latch. Swap in a wolf, and the temperature drops towards siege and winter. The Dartmoor piece reads as a trickster duel, not an apocalypse. That tonal difference is as much ecology as it is narrative choice. Everywhere we looked, the same engine turned. Repetition you can remember, escalation you can feel, failure you can learn from, and a saving success that demonstrates preparation or cunning. The predator can be a fox, wolf, hyena, or jackal. The protagonists can be pixies, pigs, goslings, kids, or lambs. The materials can be iron, brick, stone, straw, drums, or churns. But the logic stays put, and that is why the story keeps traveling. If we treat the Dartmoor fox and the pixies as a mere curious ancestor to the three little pigs, we miss its real value. It isn't just pigs before pigs. It is a living junction where Dartmoor's spirit ecology, Britain's protective metal, and a global love of three-beat cunning meet. Reading outward into Britain, Europe, and beyond shows how flexible the spine of the tale is. Reading back to Dartmoor shows what the standardized nursery version can't quite carry. A world where a tiny neighbor in an iron house survives not only because his walls are strong, but because his mind is quick. And that last, I think, is the Dartmoor tale's enduring lesson for listeners of any age. Build well and think faster. If you've enjoyed our wander through the mists of Dartmoor and the sly duel between fox and pixie, don't vanish into the night just yet. Subscribe to Britain's Haunted Tales. Like this video so others may find their way here. And follow for more journeys into Britain's strangest stories, where every shadow hides a tale, and every tale hides a trick.